So I am here with an all-star team. We are going to be chatting about some advanced training techniques, in particular in search, and we're going to pick the first four. The first four are going to be offer, counteroffer, managing the process, and then nurturing relationships. But before we start that, and these will be 4 different sessions, by the way, before we start that, I thought I would offer up each individual's sort of ethos manifesto, that's the baseline of how they deliver and what they're thinking of whenever they deliver a message in any of these categories. So I'm going to go around the horn and ask each person to say, here are the tenets that I have that drive my behavior, whether I'm dealing with a client or I'm dealing with a candidate. So Denise, let's start with you. Your tenets, your manifesto, your ethos.
Sure. So my ethos is just keeping it simple for one. Understanding the why, whether it's the client, whether it's the person that's interviewing for a role, understanding the why, and then really just making it not about you. Me as the recruiter, every conversation that I'm having, it's not about me. Mm-hmm. And so understanding those 3 things are really what drive my business every day, and it drives what I do.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Vince?
I agree with Denise, and it's not about me at all. My whole process is introduce 2 people, facilitate the process, and close at the end. It's about gaining trust, and the only way I can gain trust is truly make those people believe that I'm in it for them. If I'm talking to the candidate or I'm talking to the hiring authority, it's about them, the one that's on the phone that I'm talking to at the time. That's really my whole tenet.
Got it. KRISTA?
So my come from place is always 2 things are going to be coming from a place of compassion for the interview process, how stressful that is, how can I help alleviate that stress. So lean into the empathy for both the client and candidate side, but also generosity. What's the most generous assumption I can make out of this situation? But the 3rd tenet I'm working on is courage and leaning into those tough conversations when something doesn't align with either of those values. How can we recalibrate, work together on this? Because our mutual goal is just to make a match.
Adam.
And the beauty of going forth, a lot of what they said are things that fit into mine as well. I think what Denise said, which for me is the most important part, is it's about them. It's not about us. And I myself, when I get into ruts, it's because I make it about myself instead of about the parties at hand. As far as a baseline on the client side, I'm always in it to find the best possible solution for the client so that they have the confidence to come back to me in the future. And so getting deep to find the why is ultimately to deliver for the client. You know, we got to build the rapport with the candidates and build those relationships, but at the end of the day, the client's the one writing the check. And so my ultimate goal is by learning what is important, getting the results for the client at the end of the day.
Got it. And I will be an active facilitator in this, and I jotted down mine last night. So number 1 was people make decisions emotionally and justify logically. So always remember that. Is you've got to get the emotional buy-in, and then the logic will always come behind that. So if you're trying to sell on logic without the emotion bought in yet, you're going to have a challenge. Up front, explain to people involved in the process that our responsibility as recruiters is to assist the person with getting to a decision. Yes is fine, no is fine also, but silence or avoidance is not optimal. On the recruiter side, when you feel like you are pushing a process, you need to pause for a second and honestly ask yourself, are you pushing for yourself or are you pushing for the best possible process and deal? Because a lot of recruiters will get desperate or want an answer for themselves, where in turn it might be best to let something cook a little longer for the good of the deal. We all know this, time kills all deals. And then listen for what is being said for sure, and perhaps even more importantly, what is not being said. And then finally, the answer that you need is often in the question that you were afraid to ask or the discussion you were choosing to avoid. And so those would be my tenets that I would share. And the reason I shared these tenets in this beginning opening session is these will underlie, and I think you're going to be able to reverse engineer or thread back each of our expert panelists' answers to what we dig into.